Hey friends, I'm doing another episode in the Truth About series, and this week we are talking about sadness. Um, I know this time of year, sadness isn't exactly probably what people want to sit around and talk about, but I think it's something that a lot of people are dealing with, and it's kind of unfortunate that we feel like we have to keep that to ourselves this time of year and kind of just like isolate ourselves and those feelings because we don't want to bring other people down. And what a what a good trick of the enemy, He loves to feed us lies, but Second Corinthians 1:4 says he comforts us so that we can share comfort with others. And so I just encourage you first off to not necessarily, just share your sadness, but know that you can share comfort with other people, and that when God offers us comfort, that it is our job to extend that on to others around us that may be suffering or, dealing with sadness or whatever. I know that for myself, I deal with a lot of sadness and kind of angst this time of year. Not even really because of, you know, Christmas or anything like that. But the end of the year just reminds me of the end of things and, reminds me that even good things come to an end and that chapters end and new stories start, and just reminds me that life is always changing. And if there's one thing we are always going to be dealing with, it is the change of life. Luckily, in those challenging times of change, whether that comes from loss or, you know, starting over, some kind of trauma, some kind of letdown. I say loss because there's just like so much loss that causes sadness. There can be like loss of job, loss of home, loss of spouse, loss of a child, loss of a parent, loss of a friend, loss of a pet, or, literally anything. And it can cause you the utmost sadness. And the thing about sadness and grief is that sometimes our body stores those things when we don't process them properly. I remember a few years back, I did a Bible study about feeling our feelings and why it was so important. And in the Bible, if you pay attention, most of the time, whenever something sad happens to them, they act out, they tear their clothing, and they cry out and are very, on display with how they're feeling. And that sounds so foreign to us. And we're just like, well, that's kind of silly. Do you really need to tear your clothes and scream to where the whole city can hear you? And sometimes, like, yeah, that actually would probably help a lot of us feel better, honestly. I mean, letting out some emotions and not just suppressing everything deep down inside of us is actually quite freeing and would be very healing to a lot of us. We're taught to be strong all the time and, just push through as much as you can, even when you're not feeling your best, even when you feel like giving up. Just go, 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 go. And I personally have lived that. I've gone through a great deal of grief, and I have pushed myself just as hard as I could so that I could keep going and I didn't lose, course of whatever I was trying to accomplish. And I paid for it. And my health and the way that I felt and the way that my mental health was deteriorating. Um, and it took a lot of acknowledgement for me to understand that I was making myself sick, that I was making poor choices based on all kinds of different things that were leading me to even more poor health. So, as I have with all things in my life, I have given my health completely over to God, and I've searched the Bible on how to deal with the things that I'm struggling with whenever mental health issues arise. I won't say that I don't deal with, a small bit of anxiety and anger issues and, you know, just self doubt and sadness and all of the things. Overall, I am full of gratitude. I am full of joy. I am able to get through my days quite easily, honestly, because of God. And so that's what makes me want to share so much about God, is that He is the one friend that has gotten me through, that has never left my side, that has stayed by me, that will always stay by me, that never thinks I'm too much, that never thinks I'm not enough, that just loves me. Psalms 42:5 says, "Why am I discouraged? Why am I restless? I should trust you, Lord. I will praise you again because you help me." And if I know one thing for certain, is that God has never not showed up to help me. Every time I call, every time I need anything, He has sustained me. And, you know, I take so much comfort in that because I know that no matter what I'm going to face in the future, God's still going to be there. He's still going to help me. And so I think that a lot of times the older people get, the more hardened their heart gets because they've dealt with so much pain. My son said something to me the other day. He said, "Mom, why would people not want to be happy?" And that almost hit me like a ton of bricks because I remember a time in my life where I don't want to say I was afraid to be happy. I honestly just didn't even want to be happy because I had experienced a great level of happiness, and then I lost it. And so I just know how heavy that is. I know how heavy it is to be so happy and then to be so sad. And I remember for a while, I like blocked happiness out of my life because if I got super happy, there was a chance that I would also get super sad, and I didn't want to experience that again. And so I think that it's important that we're able to soften our hearts each time we go through something hard, to ask God to soften our hearts. It's not something like we're able to do on our own. I think that very few people are able to do that on their own without God, because it is extremely difficult to put yourself out there and know that you can be crushed, and in all aspects of your life. That can happen in a lot of different ways, but relationally, it's just hard to want to put yourself out there and be happy if you know that there's a chance that that can be taken away from you. And 1 John 3:20 says, even if we are not at ease, God is greater than our feelings. And God, I don't want to say he hurts our feelings, but sometimes he allows us to go through certain feelings and certain seasons of feelings because, I mean, first of all, there's a season for everything. There's a time for everything under the sun. There's a time to be happy and a time to be sad. And so he allows that in our life, not because he wants us to be suffering all the time, but because the more that we are going through challenging times here on earth, the more God is refining us and changing us for something beyond this. Jesus literally came here and already defeated death. So even the sting of death should not hurt us the same. It shouldn't be as painful as it once was because we know the ending. We know that nothing here is finite. Nothing here is the end. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how sad it gets, no matter how bad it gets, we know that this isn't the end. My favorite verse in the entire Bible is Romans 8:28. It says, for we know that he is working out all things for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. I take so much heart in that and so much peace and so much comfort in that, and knowing that literally no matter what happens to me here on earth, it cannot compare to the goodness that God has been planning for my life all along. And I hope that you can find hope in that also. In preparing this, actually learned that the word hope comes from the Greek word elpis or elpis. I honestly have no idea how to pronounce it. It's elpis, but it means the expectation of good. And I know that God has given me so much hope because he has restored my life over and over and over and over every time that I felt like it was nothing, like I had nothing left to give, like I had nothing left at all. God restored me. I've always told people you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I was actually listening to a different podcast this week, and I heard this reference to the Bible story where, oh gosh, I'm not going to think of her name right now. Anyways, she's told to go get all the vessels so that she can fill them up. And all she has is a little tiny bottle of oil. But she goes and gets all of the really, really big vessels, brings them all in, starts pouring, and fills them all to overflowing. And the reference there was that, we're always saying you can't pour from an empty cup. You can pour from an empty cup if you have Jesus. Jesus can make a little out of nothing. He doesn't need much from you, just a little bit of surrender, and he can make so much more. So much more hope, so much more joy, so much more goodness in your life. And that's what he wants to do. That's what he desires to do in each of us. I want to share these last two verses, and then I'm going to wrap this up. Psalms 56:8. You have kept record of my days of wandering, and you have stored my tears in your bottle and counted each of them. How beautiful is that? How beautiful of an image is that God has literally taken each of our tears and stored them away somewhere, that he has counted each and every one of them, and that none of them were wasted, that He knows about each and every single one of them, and they all carry something, some kind of weight in His grand plan, and then we've got this one here. It comes at the end of the Bible, which I think is beautiful. Revelations 21:4 is one of my favorites. It says, He will wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there will be no more death, suffering, crying, or pain. It's a beautiful reminder of the end of the story that God is writing, the story that has us in the details. There is coming a day when we are not going to experience that anymore, any of those horrible things that bring us so much sadness and so much grief. There's coming a day where we're not going to be dealing with that anymore, friends. And so I just encourage you to stay strong until then. I'll be praying for you all.